Welcome to the Live Alive podcast.
And we're back. How long has it been since we've said anything about anything in the podcast world?
Almost exactly 2 months ago, we were in Cuba. That's true.
Hi, this is Jeremy. I'm on the cutting room floor. I know it's only 45 seconds into this episode, but we already need to make some changes. It's been technically 5 months since the last episode, so from here on out, we're going to put in 5 whenever we meant to say that. Back to the episode.
And that was the last time we made a podcast.
Wow. That's crazy. So, Dylan, what's your past 5 months been like?
I think most of my last
5
months has been trying to fix my house. It's very broken, but it's getting a lot better.
Yeah. Cinco.
Once it does a lot.
It looks better,
Yeah.
visually.
And that's most of the battle, I think.
Yeah.
It's crumbling underneath, but what are you going to do?
All the main beams are rotted, but it looks great on the outside. Pez, you look older and wiser. You have anything wise to say?
I don't know that I feel wiser. I do feel older, though.
Yeah.
Man, it's been a good summer. Just getting some time with the family and getting to go out of state. Taking my 1-year-old on a 6-hour airplane ride was quite the challenge.
All right. And Chris, what's the underbelly of Orlando looking like these days?
It's hot, it's steamy, and fall is coming. So we're excited.
Sounds like a rated X movie. All right, so to go forth and prosper in season 2, what I've kind of decided we should do to get our minds right, to clear our heads, clear our hearts, clear our eyes. Can't lose. Texas forever. Is to hit up a local sensory deprivation tank. I called up several people, and this is the only one that has 4 available at the same time. So we all 4 can do it at the same time. Chris, what's your thoughts on sensory deprivation?
You know, I don't have many thoughts. I really don't know what to expect. Although I do know of one person who's very anxious, and they're kind of crazy, and they went into a sensory deprivation tank and fell asleep. So if that's what happens to a very anxious, hyperactive person, who knows what's going to happen to us?
Pez, have you ever done this before?
No, I have not. I've gotten massages before and been in a state of deep relaxation before, but I'm very much looking forward to this. I'm kind of concerned about what my brain is going to do in there.
Well, Dylan says he's kind of concerned what his bowels will do when he's fully relaxed. Dylan?
That is not true. That is a bold-faced lie by Jeremy Shirky. My bowels are solid.
Solid as a rock.
Like a rock, I was strong as I could be.
You know, this is something that I've wanted to do for a long time. I don't know when the first time I heard about it was, but I mean, now it's kind of commercialized and they have them all over. But I remember thinking and looking for them at people's houses. They just made these kind of chambers themselves and you'd have to rent it out. And I just never got around to it. And I looked on Groupon, got us a little deal. So we'll see what to expect.
So is this more for us to clear out season 1 because there's a bunch of riffraff from it and we need to focus and have our minds cleared for season 2, or is it more about something positive?
That's a good question. What do you think?
Well, I think we learned a lot in season 1, and season 2, I think we have a significantly more focused direction, but we need more clarity and ideas. So I don't know. I think it's a positive thing.
You know, I kind of have a feeling we're just going to get into the pod, and then we're going to get real comfortable. And I don't know if you have the option to turn out the light, but I think you do. And what if you close the pod and just see, like, claw marks? Like, what are y'all going to do?
Well, there's nothing you can do at that point. You've already done lost.
There is no season 2.
Maybe we should tell people where we are. Let's text our whereabouts.
East Coast floats. If you don't hear from us.
If you're listening to this and you don't know where we are, that's where to start looking.
Tell my wife I love her.
This is like a Narnia situation where we go in there and then we live whole lives into old men and we come out a few minutes later.
I'm excited to see if Dylan's beard turns gray after he comes out.
Might.
From chlorine.
No, from
Salt.
Salt.
yeah.
That's true. What if I told you guys that I've set up a special thing that one of you three will actually be in for 8 hours?
Well, it seems like you wouldn't know it. You know?
Hi, it's me again on the cutting room floor. We're about to go on a rant about drugs, coffee, and meat. Skip ahead to 9:50 to get back to Tank Talk. I've heard that like junkies in sensory deprivation, they will go in for long, extended amounts of times.
You'd have to have a lot of money. That'd be like $500.
Well, I mean, some people just have tanks in their home.
Oh.
So, like, Joe Rogan's a big proponent of it. So, any podcast listeners that listen to him too, I know he's talked about it before on his show and just his experience with it. But some people, they like double up. They'll take psychedelic drugs and then go in.
You told us to do that though.
Right.
Only
Well,
Chris did, though.
Yeah.
Only Chris brought some.
Anyway, where is all the stuff we got? I'm ready to take it.
I watched a guy. There's like a Vice News guy because I kind of went once we started talking about sensory deprivation tanks. I started with like a YouTube spiral of like people who are doing it and have done it. And there's this Vice News guy who like pretty much just travels around the world doing all the drugs, literally all of the drugs. But he did sensory deprivation tanks as well, and he would like do drugs and go in them for like 8 hours, and he would come out and look like a raccoon emerging from like a trash can. It was crazy.
Have y'all seen, I don't know if this is going to make it in the podcast, but I don't care. Extra. Have y'all seen the new book by Michael Pollan on psychedelics?
Mm-mm.
Where he's a big proponent of it? That it helps like PTSD, and there's like more and more studies showing that these like...
Did you say it was John Piper's new book?
Yeah.
Okay.
You know who Piper is?
All the pipes on drugs.
Yeah, him and MacArthur did this one on psychedelics, and but basically that like more and more studies are coming out where they're just saying like natural psychedelics like mushrooms and things like that actually help with mental health issues.
That's great. But what does it hurt simultaneously? So at what cost? Right.
Well, there's only one way to
Not
find
even
out.
Negative Nancy, but
A negative. I don't know. What's the N word for a man?
Neil?
Yeah, a negative Neil.
that's me. I'm negative Neil today.
What's going on today, Pez? Why are you so negative?
Well, I think I bought some Pete's coffee from Walmart that I've been drinking because my coffee roaster is broken right now for like the third time, and I have to mail it back in. And it's actually in the back of the van right now. I need to stop by there. And so I'm wondering if this coffee actually has caffeine or not, because I'm not feeling the effects of caffeine today, which I need. So maybe I'll come out of the sensory deprivation not needing caffeine anymore.
But what is the negative effect of caffeine?
I don't know that there really is one. I mean, it is addictive, but I don't know that there really is one. Some people get the shakes, you know? I don't really get that anymore.
I get the shakes when I drink coffee.
I only do on an empty stomach. You know, if I have an empty stomach and I drink a lot of caffeine, I'll get the shakes, and then I just have to like go eat red meat like instantly.
So red meat is
I'm
the
like
cure.
The closest animal.
I'm like that raccoon coming out of the machine.
No, he would attack that guy.
Yeah.
He'd see him
This is
with the shakes.
Yeah, this is the origin story of the wolf man. He got the shakes and he just like attacked the closest being. Got to get the nutrients.
What are y'all thinking about, clothing, optional or not?
I thought it was fully optional.
Yeah, I think it is.
What's your decision on that, Jeremy?
I'm going into the tank as I came out of the womb.
So just covered in slime.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm
And
walking-
screaming.
If you hear anything, that's just me in the tank.
It depends on the temperature.
Yeah.
If it's warm, I'll consider it. If it's cold, keeping my suit on.
The thing with the temperature, I've heard it's exactly your body temperature. So they keep it at.
So you're supposed to not feel anything at all. You don't feel the water. You don't feel
Great.
anything.
Then bathing suits are just in the way.
Yep.
So
Except Maybe Jeremy came out of the womb wearing a bathing suit. I don't know.
A Speedo.
Yeah.
Hey, Mom. I'm actually going to walk into East Coast Floats in my birthday suit. Just fully ready once I leave this car.
We're not going to even make it into the tank
Yeah.
if you do that.
You just go in like open books, not planning on thinking about anything, and just see where our minds go. I think that's what we should try to do. Like when you're completely undistracted, what does your brain think about? That'd be interesting just to see.
Yeah, and I think that actually would help with our podcast for season 2. Because when we totally clear our minds and our senses, I mean, it comes back to what we talked about in season 1, like, what do we want? It's what our mind's going to gravitate to.
Who do you think is going to do it the best?
Me, duh.
I don't know.
No, I'm excited. I think this is going to be cool. I've been wanting to do this for a while, too.
I'm excited too. I'm already tired right now, so this is going to be like a good nap.
Those were the famous last words of Chris as we parked the car and headed up to East Coast Floats. Hey there. That was Hannah. She was our guide at East Coast Floats. Unbelievably knowledgeable about the float world. Take a listen.
So once everyone has their waivers filled out, I'll take you guys on a walkthrough through the float center so you know where all of our rooms are. Then I'll take you guys into room 1. We'll do your float orientation and we'll get everyone launched.
Sweet.
Yep.
So what's the difference between the new float and the old floats?
With that one, it's mostly the design. With the older floats, they're more separated and buckled at the back. With the new one, it has a sleeker look to it. But that's about it. Plus, it has a double filter in it.
Double filter.
It looks like some kind of alien space pod.
It looks like the thing in Chicago, like the big peanut in Chicago. You know what I'm talking about?
What's the bean?
Okay, so a couple of things in the tank that you should be aware of. Right here is the metal handlebar, which you will use to pull the tank shut and then also push it open. You always want to be in a kneeling position when messing with the lid of the tank. It is the safest position to be in. Okay, so that flat button controls the music. Your music will play continuously until you turn that off.
And as that urethral music played, my brain floated off into my mind palace and got real cozy. I think Hannah talked for about 10 more minutes, instructing us with important things to do during our float. I'm not sure I wasn't really listening, but at the end, I had a few questions I needed to ask.
Do you guys have any questions?
Several. First, if you're floating, are your ears not underwater?
Yeah, so the water line will come up to be just below the corner of your eyes.
So that won't be silent enough on your ears? Do you suggest for complete silence the earplugs?
The tank itself is soundproof, and then these rooms are soundproof as well. So I mean,
So this is more for a sensitivity of the water in your ears.
Yeah.
Okay. To what happens if we fall asleep?
if you fall asleep, having the water turn on and start messing with you will eventually wake you up. But if you sleep past that, we have methods of waking you guys up. We have a procedure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I didn't
which
know if
starts
it was
with,
like
knocking on the doors.
That sounds
Yeah.
scary.
No, sorry, yeah. I mean, like, we knock on
We
the
have our
door and then
methods.
we, like...
acid in. It's more like, it's very uncomfortable.
Muppet shows up and starts banging drums.
The last one is, I know there was a $500 fee if something happens.
Yeah, if you release any bodily fluids into the pod. And it's kind of a trick, because it's $500 a day, but you're also going to pay for us to get 1,000 pounds of new salt, and you're going to pay for the amount of money we could have been making in this room every day that the room's closed.
Now,
So
I'm not planning on this.
It's a trick, that
But-
500. That's just the nice amount.
Yeah, but if it's like, does the water turn a different color if you pee in it? Like, how do you know?
So this water is actually more salt than it is water.
I
So
see.
the smell of whatever goes in the tank will happen, and then also it will change the color a little
So
bit.
there's 1,000 pounds of salt.
It's 1,000 pounds of magnesium sulfate, USP grade.
Cool.
And then 150 gallons of water. Yeah.
That's all my questions.
Does anyone else have any questions?
No.
Cool. So I'll go ahead and leave the person whose stuff is on the bench in here, and then I'll deliver everybody else to their rooms.
I don't know what's going to happen here. Let me see here. Got a bench in the shower. I like that. I do not feel like I have to go to the bathroom, but it'll be interesting over the next hour what happens. She's got me nervous about this whole pod thing, about releasing the bowels. But I'll be okay. I'm a grown adult. I'm a man. Anyway, I got to get in the shower. This is a pod episode. I can't take the microphone in here. I'll break it.
You manage a store. You manage people. You manage a schedule. It's complicated. And that's an understatement. Shift Agent simplifies. By guiding a manager through the process of pairing a shift with the right employee every time. Helping you to quickly publish a schedule that meets both the store and employee needs, which helps your employees feel valued while you save time. Improve efficiency, reduce turnover, save money, and join those who are already experiencing the benefits of better scheduling with Shift Agent.
Hey,
What's going on?
Why are we whispering?
I feel like we have to. After float life, this is how I talk now.
I lived 3 lives. How many did y'all live in the tank?
I had a couple, for sure. I had a lot of flashing forward, a lot of flashing back, you know.
I was an old woman. Is that normal?
Yeah. Totally cool. Totally normal. Hey, Chris.
Hey.
Y'all want to go record our thoughts somewhere?
I want to get some food.
Oh. Okay, weird thing was just being in there, be so quiet, you'd be doing whatever, and then my stomach would just make noises,
Yes.
and it startled me.
Yeah.
Because it's like loud.
Was there a rumbling in the floor? Like what? Like 3 or 4 times I heard this like, you know, it was like the floor was rumbling. I was like, is that?
No, it was your brain and body.
Your crazy brain.
What was it doing?
It was being crazy.
It was being set free.
There were things that sounded like trucks, like moving,
Like that.
like that. That's what it
Did
sounded.
you guys?
Did
It sounded like
That was just me rubbing the top of your pod. Very slow.
Did you touch like your skin at all?
It's like slimy.
What was slimy?
It was
I
the
felt like-
coming out of the womb.
I
Yeah.
felt
Slimy.
Like, it was like you could do like rub your arm a little bit and like the nerves just like traveled like all the way down my leg and stuff like that when I did that. You could just like feel so much more.
You guys had a more relaxing psychedelic experience than I did.
What's our first thoughts, guys?
That was strange.
Very insightful. Anything deeper, Chris? Really descriptive.
Chris went in the negative Nancy pod.
Oh, boy.
Well, I'm
Negative
not trying to
Neil
be negative, but the first thing that happened to me was, how descriptive do we want to be about this?
Perfectly descriptive.
We can bleep stuff out.
Yes.
Okay.
All of your cussing. Will have to
So
bleep
I
out.
decided to go completely free. First go. I get in the pod. I lay down. Immediately, water rushes over my face and into my eyeballs. And there's 1,000 pounds of salt in this small enclosed space. So
There's probably 30 pounds of salt in your eyeballs,
in my eyeballs.
pushing against your skull.
So for the first 10 minutes, it was trying to figure out how to get the water how to get the salt out of my eyes. Once I figured out that, I decided to change the strategy up. So I got back out, put my bathing suit on, got back in. From there, I don't know. I was just floating around.
Then the light came on. I never really...
I kept hitting the sides. My neck was kind of uncomfortable, and I just kind of gave up at some point and just turned the light back on and just sat in my pod back against the wall and asked God, "What do you want us to speak to me right now? Because this is strange, and I don't know what to do or how to react right now."
So you never really technically floated.
Chris went into the sit pod.
You sat in a float pod.
Well, okay. Well, I got tired of sitting.
Did
you keep the
colored lights on?
When I was sitting, I put the colored lights back on. And then I decided to go back into floating position.
Uh-huh.
This time with the floating pillow.
Okay.
So So I got into floating position with the floating pillow, turned the light back off, and I will say it got a little psychedelic after that because I was like laying there floating and it started to feel like I was spinning. Do you guys experience this?
Mm-hmm.
You felt like you were spinning, but you were really in place. And then I kind of dozed off, thought about a few things, and then the light turned back on and the water started flowing, which I think was my cue to wake up. So
I'm transcribing all this into a Yelp review.
So
The water's too salty.
Water's too salty. So I mean, I know I'm the only one.
Well.
I'm the only one talking right now, but my review of it is I'd rather be in a hot spring or at the beach or hanging with friends or just being in nature rather than being in a sensory deprivation tank.
I'd rather be chased by wolves.
I'd rather slide down just a slide full of razor blades.
Here's the thing:
Into a pool of alcohol.
it wasn't even a sensory deprivation tank because I could hear the clock ticking outside. I could hear my stomach growling.
Yeah.
And every now and then, the tank made a weird whoop whoop noise. So
maybe your senses are too strong, Chris.
Do you think that maybe Hannah
Chris-
up front had like buttons where she could just mess with Chris?
Chris was hearing babies that were crying like 3 miles away.
Yeah.
Yeah.
how about you, Dylan?
The
Bill?
exact same.
So weird, guys. Me too.
I think so. Here's my initial thought when I got out was mine felt like I was in there for like maybe 10 minutes. Like when the pump thing, because they turned the pump back on, which is like very subtle when it comes on at the end to let you know like, hey, your time's up. I literally was like, maybe they turned it on accident because I feel like I just got in here. So like I opened it up to like look at the clock and I was like, nope, it's been an hour. So that was really interesting. Just I felt like the time flew by, and I can't imagine. You know, I tried to basically keep my eyes open the whole time, even though you literally can't tell the difference between eyes open and eyes closed. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I can't imagine staring at anything for an hour and feeling like the time just flew by.
Yeah, I actually got salt in my eye by doing something stupid. I was blinking, opening my eyes, blinking, trying to see like the difference between if there was any. And then I had my eyes open. I want to see if I could see my hand, of course. So I just waved it in front of my face. Just salt water all over my face. And I was like, man, okay, now I understand why we shouldn't do that. So, yeah. My first initial thought getting in was I was overexcited to get too comfortable. So
I can't wait.
in a less extreme version, but kind of, I was like, oh, how should I put my hands? What's the most relaxing position? Just kept trying to do things, and then I'd wait for a second. I'm like, you know what? I probably could get more relaxed if I did this. Did any of you guys ever at any point feel like the temptation to release something into the water, like total relaxation? No?
Release what?
You know, like urine.
Yes.
Defecate,
I
whatever.
thought about peeing, but then I remembered she said it's a $500 fee if you do that. So
Yes. So, I don't know if this goes on the air, but several times for real, I had to close my sphincter because I felt so relaxed that I was like, no, this is too relaxed. And I just like tightened up a little bit. But then at one point, I'll be honest with you guys, I let a little bubble out. It just came out. And I didn't mean to. I just felt it go. Because you hear everything if you're underwater.
Hannah's collecting the evidence right now.
She is. She probably did some kind of litmus test in there, and it's gonna show up, and you're gonna
pH
face
level.
It's gonna have his face.
You're gonna
the Groupon.
yeah.
Yeah.
These guys are disgusting. But
Did any of you
Yeah.
guys think about each other while we were in there?
I did think, what are the other guys experiencing?
Yeah.
I did, yeah.
I thought
Were you
that.
like, are they having a better experience than me? Like,
I could feel Chris's bad experience from my pod.
it was emanating.
I
felt
knew
a negative energy.
I knew you were having a better experience than me, which is why I was so frustrated.
I think I could hear Chris crying from mine.
Maybe that was the rumbling truck sound I heard was his anger. Furious anger.
Chris's most relaxed pose was baby pose, curled up on the side, sucking his thumb.
No, but you couldn't even do that. I would have water in my face.
The rumbling was actually Jeremy's bubble release.
Yeah.
Anybody have any thoughts about season 2? I mean, for me, I had to come out of where I was and like realize that I was really filled with noise before I get in there, and it took some time for that to happen. And then I started asking God about season 2.
Well, it's funny talking about salt. You know, if we're actually, I was thinking a little bit more about like being salt in our city of Orlando, right? Like, how do we live as salt, as something that's preserves the goodness and brings out the God colors all around us? I think it requires us to be grounded in peace, and we're going to struggle with stress, we're going to struggle with anxiety, but to be the kind of people that can find rest and help others find rest. I was thinking a little bit about that. I'm thinking more about it now, so my time wasn't that profound in there.
So I got 2 words, I think, from the Lord, just one phrase. And in thinking about our city and what it needs in response to what it struggles with and what the people here wrestle with, I felt like the Lord said, bring joy. And it surprised me, because I don't think I would have thought of that. But it dawned on me that where we live in Orlando is a city of entertainment. And the ironic thing is, you can be entertained but not have joy.
I think oftentimes entertainment it's like an artificial, and it's a distraction from the fact that you don't have joy.
Yeah.
It's an escape from your non-joy, like your joyless life.
Yeah, and Christians, so many Christians are caught up in this, I got to go to church on Sunday, I got to find a place, but maybe I'm even feeling guilty because I don't have joy and I don't know why. I'm pursuing the Lord, maybe I'm reading scripture, maybe I'm not, but I'm trying, but I don't have joy, and I don't have peace, and I don't have the fruit of the Spirit.
Yeah, it's funny, we're talking about the fruit of the Spirit. I said peace, you said joy. I wonder if there's something for us to explore the different parts of the fruit of the Spirit and how to live that out in our own city.
What do y'all think a salty Christian looks like?
A salty Christian. The first thing that comes to mind is someone that has joy. But maybe that's because I'm thinking about joy right off. But it's somebody that, like, when they walk into a situation, you're able to diffuse it, you're able to actually speak into it, and to provide something, to provide some of God's resources into the situation, where maybe God's resources weren't presently available before that. Like, whether it's a conversation, whether it's a confrontation, between 2 people, a fight, whether it's a need for wisdom. There's a lot of different needs. And I think a salty Christian can enter into that and ask God what to do and actually execute.
My brain immediately went to like the salt and light together, and the idea of like the the light and the city on a hill, and just the fact that a salty Christian or a lit Christian,
A lit Christian.
Let's get lit.
it's just like you're very noticeable in a space. Like there's something so noticeably, tangibly, obviously different. And that attracts people.
Yes.
I think of like a winsome person in the city, like someone who's winsomely following Jesus. So that might look like doing really hard things that God has encouraged you to do. But you're doing it in a way that is filled with joy, but also you recognize the reality of brokenness around you. And I don't even know how to describe that correctly, but someone who is real, someone who is okay sharing their real emotions with other people, what's actually going on in their heart, but also somehow bringing hope into situations at the same time. And I'm thinking of a couple specific people, and everyone talks about them.
because they're noticeable.
Mhm.
And they're not perfect. And one of them I'm thinking of has a bad attitude sometimes, but I think her bad attitude's awesome because she's not hiding it.
Mhm.
You know, she's sharing it for people to see she's still struggling, but in the end, she has real hope that she's sharing with everyone around her.
I mean, I asked that mainly because there seems to be a lot of bland Christians in Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I don't really have a good answer for what makes someone salty as a Christian, but I do know what the opposite looks like.
Mm-hmm.
I'm well accustomed and understand that. So,
Timer that I set by accident.
yep.
All right, it's over.
All
Chris's
right.
timer went off.
It's the end of
So-
episode 2.
The end of Live Life podcast.
Forever.
Forever.
Thanks, Chris.
But yeah, no, like, what it, you know, that's something I'd like to explore this season. Like, what does a salt, like, even for me, thinking through, like, who do I find salty? Who do I find that really, like, you know, stands out? Like y'all are saying, who that, you know, they're not in it for platform, they're not in it for, you know, self-serving purposes. It's really just they have an actual relationship, and the overflow of that is just like, I want to be around you, you know.
What was that quote from Dallas Willard you shared with me yesterday?
It was something like, I don't know which one you're talking about.
The one about living, like connecting God to living. I think I wrote it down.
Well, I was thinking of another one he said, which is, you know, is there a problem with our Christianity? Yes, because if we say that there's 25% Christians in the United States, let's just give that number. If they were actually following Jesus, think about if 25%, if you're thinking about a piece of meat and you add the pounds of the meat, but 25% of it put salt on it, it's going to change the whole taste of the whole piece of meat.
Mm-hmm.
So if there really were, like, actual Jesus followers in America, 25%, it would change the whole country.
Yeah, so what are
Easily.
the needs that need to be changed right now in our hometown? What are the things we see where bland Christians, you know, and sometimes we even fit in that category, right? It's like, what needs to be made salty again?
Well, I found the quote that, and it was a faith that takes life seriously, right? So, I think to answer your question, Pez, I think it looks like Christians living out their faith in a way that takes life seriously. Because I think some people they look at the Christian life and it doesn't connect to actual life.
It's
like
not
this-
a Christian life.
It's not a Christian life.
I'm just a Christian.
Yeah, it's not really integrated into their real life. But if people took their whole life, their whole experience, their work experience, their home experience, their family experience, and lived out their faith, integrated into that, I think it would change everything. And I think that's what the disconnect we're seeing. There's church on Sunday, and then there's maybe you're sleeping around on Tuesday, maybe you're getting wasted on Thursday. I don't know. That's some of my experience with Christians in the city. And I'm not saying I'm perfect either, but I think there is a real disconnect between the way we live and
What
Jesus.
we say. But so what you're even saying is that this qualifier we all have to always say for some reason, like, I'm not perfect either, is to just even get in the door with some people seems kind of ridiculous. Like, that's obvious, right? Like, that should just be an obvious thing. No one should say I'm not perfect. We all know that.
Well,
you know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying against you, but I'm just saying
No.
culturally how we are. It's such, if you talk about living a Christian life, you have to walk on eggshells, because the moment that you get to, like, about actually following Jesus, people are like, zealot, legalist, what do? You like the law?
But I think there are people in our city that I've met that claim to be these super Christians that really live like hell.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's the hard balance. There's the Christian in the city of Orlando who doesn't take their faith seriously at all, and there's the person that claims to be something that they're actually not. And they're not real about their actual struggles.
I was telling Pez about this the other day. It's the dilemma of saying you can't actually take seriously of being Christ-like because people are like, that's too legalistic. And then if you say, okay, well, I'm just going to live by, quote, grace and just exist, or like, are you really a Christian? Do you follow Jesus? And there's no like in
There's
between
no notable
here.
change in someone's life.
Right. And
There's
so
nothing that's salty about it.
right, and that's what I'm saying with what you're saying, Chris. There's two distinctions. There's people who are like, oh yeah, I'm a super Christian, I live by grace, but their life is a wreck, and they're not following Jesus. And then other people that are like, you know, I want to follow Jesus, I just don't think I can, I'm just not perfect. You know, it's like the phrase, I'm forgiven, not perfect. It's like
a get out of jail free card, but in reverse.
yeah, but we're more than forgiven. We've been given a new life, right? Like, I was reading something today where it was saying that the introduction as the cross as the major symbol of Christianity, the first like time that happened was in the 400s, that I found it in Rome on a door. Someone carved it in like a church. But before that, they can't find anything in the early church using the cross as a symbol of their faith. Even though they're getting persecuted, they're like, being a Christian means you're going to die. But more so, they're telling people that there's new life. They're showing the life of Jesus. They're showing about the resurrection. They're showing about the ascension. All the like eternal, life-giving parts of God was the focus. And then at some point, it turned into the cross. And now we look at the cross as like the only part where it's like the atonement or forgiveness on the cross. And it's all about death. And it's like, no, the death was required to give new life. And it's a part of the whole life-giving part of it. But
Did they offer any other symbol?
Huh?
Did they offer an idea for a new symbol for Christianity?
In the book?
Yeah. So
I just
I think it should be
go ahead.
is a seed. Seeds.
Yeah.
Right? Because they die first and then they grow. Maybe that should be the new symbol on churches everywhere. I don't know how you would draw it, but like seeds next to bread or something. But it really is that.
Yeah.
It really is a problem.
And I think it shows the importance of actually living the abundant life that Jesus promised. Because the solution to this, I think a lot of what the dissonance is you have a bunch of people saying, you should live life this way, you should live life this way, and there's like no joy in them. Like all the legalists, there's no joy. And all the people who are living like a licentious whatever lifestyle, there's also no joy. You know, because they're experiencing the hell of their bad decisions that go against what King Jesus wants them to do.
Right.
But the legalists are experiencing the hell of their own self-righteousness.
And they spread it.
Both of them spread it.
And condemn it.
The difference, though, is someone who is actually obeying Jesus because they love him and they're actually experiencing joy. Like the magnetism of that. Then you're not telling people, you know, you're not spreading your poison either way. You're actually spreading the good news of you can have a different life. You can have an abundant life.
You know, this brings me back to my last thought before I exited the pod, which, full disclosure, this is actually what I was thinking about. I was like, what is it about, like, sexual fantasies that I don't think God has better? Like, why would I be more drawn to a sexual fantasy rather than God himself? If because I was like, I literally was breaking down in my head the parts and components of a sexual fantasy and then the characteristics that God himself holds that gives any joy in it, right? And it was like, it's because what you're saying, Dylan, is I don't a lot of times believe what God has for me and the life he has for me is actually better than one I can make up. I mean, that's the downfall probably for most of us, that we think we can do it better than God. And what's crazy is I think that's a lot of Christians, is that we don't pursue a Christian life because we actually don't believe it's better and can give us more joy than we can produce ourselves. Even though we're not producing any joy, and we know that, but we keep trying different things. But
it must be better than whatever God has.
Because and it's like the thing where it's like, you know, we think of the Christian life as this great sacrifice, the straight and narrow, and like you bear your cross, and it's a super hard thing, which it is. It costs everything. But what are we holding on to? Let's let it go, you know? And it's like, someone had a good point to this. They're like, but no one ever talks about the opposite. Like, is it hard to live the Christian life? Sure. But it's so much harder to live a non-Christian life because you're always going to be in dissension. You're always going to be in conflict. You're always going to be depressed. You're always going to be, like, in pain. Like, and there's hell on that side as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yet we only focus how hard the Christian life is, and not like how much better the righteous life is than an unrighteous life. I mean, read Proverbs. The whole thing is talking about if you're living an unrighteous life, these are the consequences.
I still think the Christian life can be that painful though too. But I think what sets it apart is you have like a long view. Like you're talking about sex. I've thought about this a lot recently. I know this is opening a whole another can of worms, but it's like, okay, if sex is just like a representation, like a shadow of our intimacy in heaven with God, right? Our union to Christ. What's that going to be like?
Yeah.
There's got to be so much more there that we're about to experience that we can't even fathom.
But can you experience it now? That's the question.
I don't know if you can experience the full extent, but you can experience hope.
Right. But my thought is that what Dylan's saying is the thing, yes, is the Christian life hard? Sure. But can you experience joy in the Christian life now? And can you experience joy in the unchristian life now? Like true joy? No. I mean, that's what Scripture says. Like, you literally can't. And there's things you can experience now. And that's where I'm at. Because I think the problem is, as Christians, we just lay up all of our hope for the future, and we're just going to, like, survive now, grit and bear it, you know. But, you know, heaven's going to be great. And that's all true. But is there actually things for us now to experience? And I think that's why I keep using the phrase sideline Christians in Orlando. It's because they don't think anything's for now.
Yeah.
It's just we're going to survive. There's nothing that we can tangibly like grasp now that's good and better than my life that I'm producing for myself and thinking for myself. And it's like, well, are we taking God at His word that the Spirit is with us now and that we can experience the fruit of the Spirit now? You know? I don't know if that makes sense. But
yeah, heaven starts now.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and it's not the full reality, but we're beginning to experience heaven every single day as we lay more seeds.
That was Jesus' his teaching on the kingdom is always that, right? Like, you know, there's a lot of theologians that will basically say pretty much all Jesus did was teaching or demonstrating the kingdom. And the demonstration was, there's you know, if you look at the kingdom as things as they should be, there shouldn't be death, so he'd make people come back from the dead. There shouldn't be people going without, you know, needs unmet, so he would give people food and water and wine. You know, there shouldn't be sickness, so he would heal the sick. Like, all of these things were demonstrating the way things are supposed to be. They will not be that way 100% right now. But he did also say, I'm bringing the kingdom right now. Like, it is ushered in with me, walking around right now, talking to you guys. And part of that is, as Christians obey the good King Jesus, they bring the kingdom into wherever they are with the joy that's produced in their lives, with the fullness, with the rightness, with the things that they should be-ness. And the community of them together doing that actually brings the kingdom.
So what's the holdup?
Here's what I'm going to say is, like, there's a scripture where Jesus says, you're going to do greater things than I did.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those, like, I think it was G.K. Chesterton who said Christianity hasn't been found, you know, hard or impossible or something like that. He's like, it's been left untried. It's untried.
Yeah.
And not untried in a legalistic way, but untried in a disciplined way.
Yeah.
Like, get together with friends and live it out. Like, listen, learn how to hear from God, learn how to do what He says, get in a community, don't run from conflict, stuff like that. That all of this stuff that even the physical body teaches us about what it takes to have, you know, kind of the ultimate physique is what it takes on a spiritual level too, for us to actually hone and craft our spiritual gifts together to produce the kingdom.
I think this is the holdup, because you said, I love what you said about seeds. The symbol of the Christian life is a seed, and I think this life begins when you allow yourself to die. And I always go back to what happened in season 1 when Bob Goff said, comfortable people don't need Jesus, desperate people do. And if we don't get desperate before God, well, I don't think we'll ever experience the kingdom. But it takes those situations of hardship and having to die in those situations to our own strength. And like Jesus, like the thief on the cross next to Jesus, his whole theology was help. And Jesus is like, well, I'll see you in heaven today.
Well,
you know?
the only way people are actually going to die themselves is if they actually believe following Jesus is better. Period.
Well, one of the
people
things
don't think that.
Yeah, but one of the things that
So that's when our battery died.
Always fun. I think we'll blame Dylan for this one.
Yeah, he's not here right now, so let's just go ahead and blame him.
curse you, Dylan.
You're blamed, Dylan. Well, I think it's important to recognize that it's now 3 months after the pod.
Yeah, the pod on the pod.
A lot has happened since we got out of the pod.
But the recorder that wasn't recording missed a really good conversation. And
It was just heating up.
yeah, we were talking about our experience in our hometown of how Christianity has changed and what the experience has really been like. It was kind of nostalgic.
Yeah. I mean, because we were really focusing on like the last time we remember everyone being really excited about a movement, being Christians and doing something. I mean, y'all remember this. Like, there was a time not that long ago where it just seemed like everybody was on the same page and everyone was on board to like make a huge difference. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, in our city, there were several ministries that made it feel like there was a movement happening in our town. You know, you had college kids that were excited at Valencia and at UCF, and then it just seemed like there were a couple of really powerful churches that were capturing the 20-somethings and the 30-somethings and the young families, and there was a movement.
Yeah. I mean, we had one of the fastest growing churches in Florida at the time in Orlando that was exploding with just young people. We had probably one of the most culturally relevant churches in America with like all these artists coming together. And on top of that, there was stuff going across the nation with social justice movements. Invisible Children was blowing up at the time.
They had the biggest YouTube video ever with Coney.
Yeah,
it just seems like everything was moving.
I think they said that was the most viral video up to that point at the time because it reached 100 million views, the quickest ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even that didn't last for very long. And just a few years ago, even after a lot of this church movement seemed to die off in our city, there was almost like an underground organic movement of worship happening and Christians all over the city coming together. And that has even died off.
Right.
Like there was a time a few years ago where it felt like something really big was happening in Orlando, not just in churches, but just in Christianity, people actually being on mission together and worshiping Jesus together. And as that's fizzled out, I don't even know where that enclave is anymore.
Right.
Like I'm pretty connected to the city. I can't find a group of people who are still doing that.
It's just the question that we've been talking about for a while, and it's where is the passion? What are we excited about as Christians? What are we trying to do and accomplish and live for? And the answer is kind of depressing. It just seems that we have this huge malaise over the whole city, right? And everyone's kind of floating in their own direction. And there's no unity. There's no like movement in a singular direction. We're just existing now. It was like a huge revival was happening. And now we're on the other side of it.
Yeah, people in general don't seem to be talking about Jesus and about mission and about the abundant life. We're talking about other things.
Yeah. It almost is like there was a intimate, passionate fire burning, right? That just got ignited like about a decade ago.
Yeah.
And I mean, now where are we? It's like we're becoming a Christian ghost town.
I have my suspicions about why that is, but I'm not sure they're right. I'd really like to ask questions. I'd really like to get to know what is actually happening in our city. Because in some regards, we are in a bubble. Because we have a community. We have a group of people that are following Jesus together, and we're part of each other's lives. We're dealing with problems together. But a lot of people don't have that. And I don't know why. Most people don't have that. And I want to know why. Because we could get to there. Like if we're not careful, we could lose the fire that we have as well.
I mean, it's a good question though. Like what gets y'all's fire burning still? What keeps your fire burning?
That is a very good question. Right now, I feel like one of the lucky ones. Though I feel like in our city, we've seen a lot of really devastating things happen, that the group of people that surrounds me and my family has helped each other stay close to the fire. But the fire just feels so much smaller now.
Do you remember the first time you saw a magic trick that you could not explain? Like how it made you feel that anything was possible? But then at some point you realized it wasn't real, and you didn't know what to believe anymore.
Death marks the second time this year that a prominent pastor's son has taken his life.
Now imagine if that happened to a whole city, where the revival ends and faith disappears. This is a story of lost magic, Season 2 of the Live Alive podcast.